All right. Welcome to a Common Sense Reading Series. My name is Jordan Stempelman. For those of you who are attending for the first time, I started this series in Kansas City, Missouri, 12 years ago, when the poets Daniel Kalachi and Zach Savage were on a reading tour and they needed a place to read. And they needed a place in Kansas City to support a reading. We didn't really have one like this. And so it was just common sense to start one. That's where the name came from. And part of the intention early on, and as part of that first reading, was to have a student in the creative writing program read alongside those readers. And so I've always had some manifestation of that. And it's turned into every January featuring those creative writing majors interested in being a part of the series. So I'm really excited to hear from their work tonight. Some of them I've worked with directly, and some I'll be working with directly in the spring, hopefully. So as I admit some more people here, I want to say that all the readings this spring will be virtual. Next month's reading, which happens in 2 weeks, will be on February 12th at 7 p.m. And that will feature the poets Izzy Casey and Ashley M. Jones. If you're not familiar with Izzy's work, recent work's been in Poetry Magazine. Ashley M. Jones has a fantastic new book called Reparations Now, and Ashley is the first Black poet laureate of Mississippi. So I'm really excited to have those two readers. I will go ahead and in the chat post the link where you can register for that reading in a couple of weeks, because it will be on February 12th. Go ahead and get this in here. Okay, so that should take you there. It's same thing as you got here today. If you just go ahead and register, you'll be able to get a link for that reading. Also, I've archived all of my past virtual readings, Common Sense readings at my website. So check those out as well. There's some really dynamite recordings there. And in the next few days, this reading will appear there as well. I want to mention that this event, as well as the other events that will happen in the spring and that happened in the fall, were made possible by generous contributions from the creative writing program at the Kansas City Art Institute. Before I introduce this afternoon's readers, please feel free to use the reactions emojis at any point in time during the reading. You can participate in the chat. I really encourage that. It's one of the things that we can be a little bit more boisterous than perhaps in a quiet little gallery setting. Although I hope to be back in that gallery, in the new gallery at some point as well. All right, so our second reader will be Madeline Girard. Madeline is a writer from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She is currently working on a degree in creative writing and printmaking at KCAI. And her poems explore the interpersonal and the idea of, I love this phrase, emotional heirloom. Please welcome Madeline Girard.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to start with a short poem with a visual accompaniment. So I'm going to share my screen quick. I shook the pink tambourine and it ran away from me. So I left, changing my shoes in the field. It could have belonged to me. She was drawn to me. I thought of all the times women had persuaded me that I would be meaningful. And I think people are infectious. This is named Floating. I need to find it lovely, my flotation device. Its depressed shape showing me the accommodations it's made. Always just want returning gorgeous circles. Try to regulate inflammation by listening, by starting to wear sunscreen on my face. After so many fires, offer so many fires, after impulsiveness, something to just get behind. Chase a fight, chase my own waste, dizziness, gushing prefaces, definitions of vulnerability vibrate potential. Obsessed and nothing ever really happens. Crawl over the bed like a tired deer, my sister illustrating from the dock where the dog's knee should be, then snapping it in place. This bed skirt is perforated. My hands try to hold, then drift onto the hand-laid tile, hiding how young it is. This is named Soft Like a City. It's soft to figure out why you were gone, soft why I come back, soft how it sounds, soft like a city where I have grown used to outsourcing my needs. Gesturing at usefulness, cry vague things. I am assisting others in their pursuits of leisure. 3 and flowers, bricks and bricks. I know a man covered in Kandinsky and another man. And this plane is a hazardous cavern, covered in grand drawing, printed on vinyl, wrapping the aviation resin. I know a man covered in Kandinsky, and I am a part of the decoration, drinking and swallowing both behind protective equipment. I am behind myself, and have been. Plans for etchings. Wish I didn't know what it looked like, so maybe I would want to make drawings and make etchings of those drawings. And then we could talk about the etchings. Spider, maybe I would even want to talk about the etchings, but no one told me writing letters was a discipline when I started promising all this shit. I thought I should talk about the basement, but the vaccine, white light, concrete, you painted half green, not half tones, tried to force a pattern that was simply not there. Ceiling fan buffering, its shadow larger, vibrating back of leaf blue, like brassica, making a mirror of the water. And this poem is named Freedom in the Bird of Paradise Rug. I remember exotic birds, exotic to me, appearing from mouths and jacket pockets, herons we fed salty meats behind a screen. And when it rained, everything hidden in that rug was made new. Salted tomatoes, hibiscus, self-care for the self-deprecating, neurosis, venom. I am relieved. You are at your perch, everywhere, Alstroemeria, you have been leaving the house. Spider, do you remember crawling to the river, the property you kept untouched for the naturalists, lacerated by raspberry thicket? Spider, did you know you have backed yourself into a corner, away from the moths? Or am I wrong? Is it the other way around? Spider, did you know you left it up to the children to come up with new rituals? iMovie slideshows, memorial cards, unrecognizable women, rougher than the cardstock options. I lost the heirlooms on the floor, the letters and the furs. I am afraid of the bear I am out here hunting. Spider, remember when we swam to the raft, crushing the bones seabirds made under our feet? The women who found freedom in the bird of paradise rug made wind chimes with those bones. They rake the air with lapis beads. And Spider, if you have been mourning the end of matriarchy, I have been mourning this attempt. I have the door open. It smells like her house. Over the radio, goulash is being made. But Spider, you are the young thing, envious of the spirit of me, another young thing, an old free you killed. That's all from me.
Thank you so much, Madeline. That was wonderful. It's so good to hear that Freedom in the Bird of Paradise rug read by you. You know, and there's a film that accompanies it as well, which is really, really great. I'm assisting others in their pursuit of leisure. It's got such a Janus face statement to it. Like, is that a gift that you're giving people, or is it something that you are beholden to? You know, I think about many bosses that I have assisted in their pursuit of leisure as I lost leisure, but then also the gift of to do that for someone out of a sense of care. It was a really lovely line. I'm having a good time with this. Thank you so much for agreeing to read. And I'm really excited to hear our final reader. And our final reader today is Sydney Smith. And Sydney well, first of all, let me say, Sydney is a student who's appeared on my rosters many times in the past, but who's now on my roster for 3 times, and I'm hoping sticks around this time. But I know that, you know, there's always been this like scheduling thing where you've been like, yes, and we've been in communication, so, but we've never had this materialize. So I'm really excited this spring. Maybe you won't be after seeing me in 3 classes, so we'll see how this goes. But I'm really excited to work with you in the spring. But Sydney Smith is an artist and a writer from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they are pursuing their BFA in fiber and creative writing at KCAI. Their work is not published anywhere, so don't go looking for it. I might take that last clause of your bio and put it on mine if it's okay. I just don't go looking for it. I like that. Just leave it be.
Of course.
I love it. Yeah, don't go looking for it. Just leave it be. But I'm really excited to hear you read, Sydney. And it's all, the floor is yours.
Okay, cool. I'm just gonna give a little intro and say I wrote these pieces in reflection of the time I spent in Oregon and Idaho working this summer. And yeah, that's what it's about. So I'll just start. Sorry, I'm really nervous. Okay, here we go. Okay. Port of Hope. There are young boys playing war on the internet. They tell me I must come to Port of Hope to fight for revolution. At best, I expect to harvest some of the seeds they've planted and bring them back in my overflowing pockets. At worst, I expect to find a cult of mullet-headed stolid worshippers decked out in Carhartts who mansplain gender trouble to me at a house show and stare at my tits while we drink shitty beer. I could already find the latter at home, so I decide it's worth a shot. But when I arrive, I'm surprised to find neither and nothing in between. Perhaps it was just my timing, both too late and too early somehow. I was wrong to go searching for hope during a plague and expect to find anyone thriving. The Port of Hope is dismal and boarded up. There is nothing around me but wasteland. There are shoeless, houseless junkies shooting up along the Burnside Bridge. New laws prevent them from being arrested, but it doesn't change the fact that rent is $3,500 downtown, and there are few decent ways to make a living. There are tour guides taking rural high school students to a labyrinthine bookstore full of stories about magic and gender and critical race theory, and everyone ignores the people begging for food on the doorstep. I buy a slice of artisanal wild mushroom pizza across the way and give it to a homeless man playing guitar whose sign reads "Love thy neighbor." But I feel guilty when I realize several others have gathered near him in my absence, and I've only come back with enough food for one. I'm not at liberty to condemn the Port of Hope or the people who planted their hopes there, but I must properly grieve the hope that I lost so its spirit may be transmuted. There is a housing crisis in Kansas City too, and in Tulsa. There is a housing crisis in Spokane and in Philly, and in every city that isn't rich enough to condemn its homeless citizens to death somewhere else, at the outskirts of its borders, or within the blood-stained walls of its prisons. These are the bloody wounds in the bleeding body that is America bleeding out. A nation that goes around bleeding long enough will die of many wounds in its attempt to stave off the fatal wound of imperial collapse. In the wake of a bleeding titan, gangrenous and greedy, eyes blood red and wrathful, there will be many casualties. Idaho. When I arrive in Portland, everything is gray. I have ridden for 3 days in a stranger's car from a mountain settlement in Santa, Idaho, an abandoned logging town secluded from society. Jim tells me all the industry in northern Idaho has dried up, and most of the land has been clear-cut around the mountain. Jim makes his money selling bone tools at bookbinding conventions. The nearest general store is 45 minutes away. The Andre champagne I normally get for $4 at Quick Trip is $13 at the Fernwood Mercantile. I am not from the area, but it's obvious from the architecture that Fernwood and St. Mary's might be rivals rather than neighbors, and Santa is where people go to be alone. Fernwood straddles Highway 3. Well-decorated trailers neatly line either side of the road. About 1 in every 5 people in Fernwood seems afflicted with loneliness and/or addiction, symptoms of our collective illness. To this day, I truly wonder how anyone ended up there, not because it was particularly unbearable. There are plenty of towns worse than Fernwood in my own backyard, but because there were so few people and in such an inconvenient place. In my mind, Fernwood is like a page in a pop-up book, a ghost town from Wile E. Coyote with mobile homes in place of old saloons. I imagine the people shooting up from the ground like prairie shrubs spread apart, rooted deep into the dirt, although I know they must be loggers of not so distant half-toppled forests. But if there's a vital lifeblood pumping through Fernwood, it's the library. It was located in a boxy white building at the end of a gravel road behind a trailer park, and it was the only place with Wi-Fi. Cell towers do not reach most of the Tri-Town area. The librarian is passionate. She is essential to her community. She lives across the street from the library in a small white trailer. When we all pull into the parking lot after hours to scroll through our neglected internet personalities, she walks over to greet us kindly. She tells us that during the lockdown, she advocated to keep the library open so people could pay bills and contact loved ones the only way they knew how. In the parking lot, I open my browser to pay the gas bill for a house I'm not staying in. I log into Instagram and post a picture of some trees. The gravel where I'm sitting digs into the flesh of my thighs. I do not want to come back to Kansas City. I want to move to Santa to stay in a shack with no electricity on the homestead. In the newspaper, we read about an epic bar fight in St. Mary's where an old woman put out her cigarette into another woman's eye. Earlier that day at the St. Mary's Library, which is admittedly nicer than the one in Fernwood, I looked up the property values to find the average listing. $300,000. Guess it looks like I'm too late. During the pandemic, Wall Street bankers bought up all the available properties, even undesirable ones, creating a bubble that will crash the economy and leave everyone destitute by 2023. The mountain road that leads to the homestead in Santa is lined with other properties waving big blue flags that say "fuck Biden." Apparently, there used to be more hippies in the woods. A local newspaper in the 70s described the newcomers as California types. In truth, they came from all over in search of a life defined by something other than capital. Jim tells me they once had 16 people living in yurts in a clearing on their land. He tells me 4 babies were born in that field. He points to a picture on the wall. He shows me who the hitchhikers were and the mothers and the children, etc. Over the decades, all the hippies left one by one as property taxes were raised, jobs disappeared, babies were born, and temperaments changed. Jim and Melody were the last ones standing, and by the looks of the abandoned woodstock shacks surrounding the homestead, they were the best equipped to survive the elements, the babies, and the joblessness. After warming up to them, we started smoking homegrown and drinking beer in the evenings. One night we got drunk and talked about the Vietnam War. Jim narrowly escaped due to an injury incurred while draft dodging. Another man fled to Mexico until the war had ended. Melody had a bountiful garden bursting with vegetables. Sometimes I would help her gather fresh greens for our lunch and dinner. She read my tarot and told me I should drop out of college. They had created their own version of running water, built by hand from the knowledge in dusty old books and pamphlets from the 70s. We could shower for up to 10 minutes. Everything was solar powered or heated by a wood-fired stove, including the surprisingly warm bath water. At the end of my stay, I packed up all my shit and got into an old pickup truck with a 53-year-old woman I barely knew, and we began our descent into Portland. A deluded dream of futurity, a new strain, a new universe. In a dream, the streets of Portland are paved with fly agaric and lined with info shops providing free Narcan. The ponderosas reach as tall as the tallest building and crowd out the sun. Everything is so green and cool to the touch. The cherry blossoms bloom all year and turn everyone varying shades of pink. I am working on a weed farm in the ruins of Northeast Portland with ethical hiring practices and collective ownership. In the dream, I love smoking marijuana. It solves all my mental and physical health problems without worsening my fatigue or clouding my mind. This weed farm in Portland becomes a holy site, like the fountain at Lourdes, and sick people gather by the thousands to be healed with the fruits of our collective labor. I shovel shit from a composting toilet into another kind of compost, and none of it stinks, and I'm smiling. There are horses here too somehow, and abundant green vegetables and fresh bread. Mount Hood is a free public ski center, and we go there on weekends year-round and laugh about its being a volcano primed to burst. We have forgotten the explosion at Mount St. Helens, where its real name, Luet Latla, and we have forgotten the burning of Astoria, Oregon in 1922 by Klansmen, and remember it mostly as the town where the Goonies was filmed. I teach ceramics workshops for ex-convicts on Tuesdays, and the clay doesn't make my hands feel crackled and dry, and leaning over the wheel doesn't make my back ache. I have excellent posture and effortless beauty, and I'm perpetually losing 20 pounds and gaining muscle. My lymphatic drainage has never been better, and I no longer have allergies, thanks to smoking the Lord's water marijuana and breathing only evergreen-scented mountain fresh air. The salmon population has rebounded, and the First Peoples have been returned their rightful stewardship over the land. The homelessness crisis is over, and everyone camps out in the park just because we want to. The giant skyscraper ponderosas act like a big umbrella that blocks out the rain in places like our campsite, where rain is inconvenient. In the collapsing ruins of a Burger King that the workers burned down long ago to protest low wages and the murder of sacred cows, we have planted a beautiful garden that feeds many. We have smashed up all the cop cars in a large ravine by the Columbia River, and people jump over them Evel Knievel style with BMX bikes strapped to makeshift solar-powered engines. I am known for making delicious raw vegan desserts that I pass out for free at the bike show. All the supermarkets have also been burned, and in their fertile ashes, abundant fields of edible native plants burst up from the earth. The train is still here, but it's free to ride, and it runs on a golden liquid that creates no waste. I feel so light that one day, as I am walking, my feet begin to float above the dirt where my toes once sank in. With each passing day, I ascend a few more inches, but no one looks at me strangely. Some of my friends begin to float too, and we start a club where we teach ourselves synchronized routines to perform midair. After a week, we have all floated above the ponderosas, and we feed on sweet-tasting dewdrops that accumulate around us at the edge of the troposphere. We ascend into the stratosphere and begin to communicate telepathically, exchanging images from our formerly separate terrestrial existences. In the mesosphere, our bodies begin to burn up like meteors, and in the exosphere, our atoms diffuse and converge into a great flaming ball that projects itself into space, traveling many light years per second. We pass by and through many star clusters, but we do not perceive them as separate bodies. We burst through the fabric of time into another dimension where we expand and become a new universe. That's it.
Sydney, that was wonderful. That was great. The word that came to mind was rapturous. You know, it was very rapturous. You know, the utopia and the dystopia, and the drab realism, and the exciting realism of just these people like Jim and Melody. Yeah, that was great. That was really great. Let me add spotlights here of all our readers. There you are. I see all of you. Yeah, that was phenomenal. All three of our readers. Thank you so much for choosing to do this. I know it can be nerve-wracking. I remember, some of my first readings where I couldn't even catch my breath, but you all were phenomenal, and you did so well. And thank you for choosing to participate in this. So I always worry each year that no one's going to want to do this anymore, or people are too busy, or whatever. And so I appreciate you all for doing that. It's very gracious to read your work to other people, and I really do appreciate it. So a big round of applause to Sydney, and to Madeline, and to Anna, and I hope that those in the audience come back in a couple weeks to check out the poetry of Ashley and Izzy. And I'll have another reading in March, and then one in April, and then we'll have some sprung formal release type of thing that has nothing to do with this series, but that's what I'm on the books for. So anyway, I hope to see you three around campus, hopefully, as fingers crossed that we're not having to do this for the rest of the semester, because I've got plans and that would put a wrench in them. So anyway, thank you to our audience. Thank you to our readers. You all have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. I keep on saying I need to have these readings in the afternoon just because I think it gives me such buoyancy moving forward, but schedules don't always allow for that. But hopefully you'll take a lot of these incredible poems with you out into the world, because it's not 0 degrees out. You can actually walk through the world, and have a great Saturday. Thank you everyone for coming, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.